I managed to overcome the darkness. My life hasn't been easy, but maybe my story will be useful to someone. After finishing high school, I enrolled in a local college in Ohio to study library science. After graduation, I found a job in a small town nearby. That's where I met Tom. We spent a lot of time together. We were friends, but then it grew into something more. When the time came, I saw him off as he left to serve in the army. 2 years of letters, of waiting. And then one day I received a letter written in unfamiliar handwriting. It was from a guy who had served with Tom. He told me that Tom had met someone else, was planning to marry her, and would be staying in California. I was devastated. My first love disappeared like a dream that ended too soon. But life moved on, and in time the tears dried. There were other men who showed interest in me, but none of them touched my heart. And then Jake returned from the army, a guy from my hometown. He started paying attention to me, and even my family encouraged it. Before long, he proposed. I hesitated for a long time, but in the end, I made my decision impulsively, on the very same day my former love returned to town with his young wife. 2 months later, Jake and I got married, and our life as a family began. He loved me, and I tried my best to love him in return. When our son Luke was born a year later, all my love shifted to him. We lived with my parents. Jake worked while I stayed home, taking care of our son and managing the household. 2 years later, our daughter Hayley was born. There was more to do, but I tried to handle everything on my own. I loved cooking and doing crafts. When the kids grew a little older, we enrolled them in daycare, and I returned to work at the local library. The problems crept in unnoticed. My mother wasn't happy that Jake was always at work and never helped at home. The arguments started turning into full-blown fights. And then I found out my husband had someone else. At first, I refused to believe it. He denied everything too, but his behavior spoke for itself. He started coming home late, then stopped coming home at all. Worst of all, he became aggressive, sometimes even raising a hand against me. I couldn't take it anymore. Without hesitation, I filed for divorce. And so, at 24, I was on my own. But there was no time to dwell on it. My children needed me. They were growing up, and they required my full attention. During the day, I worked at the library. In the evenings, I knitted sweaters, scarves, hats, anything to make a little extra money. A librarian's salary was modest, so every extra dollar counted. One late autumn evening, after I had already put the kids to bed, there was a knock at the door. Peeking out the window, I saw a man in a military uniform. When I opened the door, I recognized him. Mike, my former college classmate. He was on assignment nearby, remembered that I lived in this town, and decided to stop by. We spent the whole night talking, reminiscing about our college years. By morning, he had to leave, promising to call and write. As time passed, I nearly forgot about his unexpected visit, until one day I got a call at work. "I'm coming on Sunday. Meet me." And just like that, our frequent meetings began, slowly turning into something more. Before long, Mike proposed, and without hesitation, I said yes. Our life together was happy. Mike got along wonderfully with the kids, and they grew to love him dearly. He helped me with the housework, took care of the little ones while I was at work. For the first time in a long time, it felt like things would be different, like my happiness was finally solid and unshakable. But Mike wanted a child. We tried. We hoped. But I couldn't get pregnant. It changed him. He started to grow distant, and before long he turned to drinking. Then there was another woman. Exactly 7 years after my first divorce, on that very same autumn day, I found myself alone again. The world lost its colours, everything drowned in darkness. I fell into a deep depression. Nothing brought me joy. I went to work only because I had to, moving through life on autopilot. But the one thing that kept me going was my children. They were growing up, and they still needed my love and care. Time passed, and as they say, time heals. Slowly, the darkness began to fade, and life no longer felt so bitter. My son Luke graduated high school and went off to college while Hayley was finishing her senior year. And I was only 35. I had no desire to start a new relationship. I didn't believe in love anymore. But life had other plans. One day, a man entered my life. He was older than me. He often came to the library, one of our regular visitors. He would quietly sit in the corner flipping through books and magazines. And then, unhurriedly, he would wait until my shift ended, just to walk me home. That's how our friendship began, lasting for 2 years. And then, one day he asked me to marry him. I hadn't expected it, but I said yes. My mother disapproved. She couldn't accept the fact that I was getting married for the 3rd time. But my children supported me. Life finally seemed to fall into place. He loved me. He cared for me. But as it turned out, the trials weren't over yet. My daughter Hayley suffered a devastating heartbreak. The man she was planning to marry left her. She was pregnant, and he refused to have anything to do with her or the baby. It hit me hard. Then, my own health began to fail. Endless hospital visits, tests, exhaustion that wouldn't go away. It felt like fate was testing me again. But even in the darkest moments, God didn't abandon me. With the support of my husband and children, I began to recover. I was officially declared partially disabled, but I continued working at the library. It seemed like life was slowly getting back on track. And then, my husband fell ill. The diagnosis was terrifying: pancreatic cancer. 4 years of fighting, endless hospital stays, pain that never let up. And then, he was gone. I was 48, and once again, I was alone. Nothing could comfort me. Not my work, not the laughter of my grandchildren, nothing. And so, a treacherous companion crept into my life: alcohol. For a brief moment, it numbed the pain. The memories blurred, the sorrow dulled. At first, I drank in secret, but it wasn't something I could hide for long. My family, my co-workers, my friends, they all noticed. They never said anything outright, but I saw it in their eyes. Pity, disappointment, but I didn't care. I neglected my job. I stopped taking care of myself. I abandoned all my hobbies. 2 years passed like that. Sometimes guilt would gnaw at me. At night, I would promise myself that tomorrow I'd start fresh, but every new day looked just like the one before. I don't know how it all would have ended if not for my worsening health. I began losing weight rapidly. I couldn't eat. I spent sleepless nights, trapped in relentless pain. Eventually, I ended up in the hospital for several months. That time forced me to reflect, to reevaluate everything. And then, a firm realization struck me. It's not my time to die. No matter how bitter life has been, I must fight for it. Suddenly, I wanted to live. Maybe my prayers had finally been heard, or perhaps I had simply endured every trial meant for me. But one day, a miracle happened. It was as if a black curtain had fallen away, and I could see the sun again. Its warmth reached even the darkest corners of my soul. My renewed will to live was met with love and support from my family, my friends, my colleagues. They reached out to me again, and with their encouragement, I began to rebuild myself. I saw the world's beauty once more. It was as if a dormant energy within me had awakened, one I had long thought lost. I returned to my passions. I spent more time with my family. And at work, I achieved incredible success. My ideas transformed the library into a true community hub, earning me praise for the new projects I introduced. My children and grandchildren love me. I am alive. I made it out of the darkness. I found my way back to life, and I believe if my story inspires even one woman to reevaluate her life and take a step toward the light, then everything I've been through was worth it.